Chapter 11. Is This Her World? I stumbled, then tumbled to a cold, hard floor. When I dared to open my eyes and stand, I wasn't outside the dungeon, or even back in the sepia streets that had been my torment for so long. I was in a large, bright, white train station, with people hustling past. In the sky there were small capsules with paper inside, flying, darting around the people this way and that. Sleek, bubble-shaped trains softly glided to a stop. Their doors opened with a swish as they gently bobbed in the thin air, like boats on unseen water. People dashed out of the carriages, and others stepped inside, followed by the capsules of paper. The brightness and clinical finish of everything left me squinting a little. What's more, the people here seemed very different from the ones in the dungeon, or even in the sepia streets. Their clothing all seemed unique, full of colour and flamboyance. Some strode in human-like forms. Others had wings, wheels, or even multiple legs to get around. Some even seemed an odd mix of creatures. But they bustled about, intently immersed in their own thoughts, focused on going somewhere, or presumably doing something. Kentaro, a gentle voice whispered close by. It's okay. You're safe now. I turned to see Felicia standing right there next to me, not separated by cruel glass or helping me fleetingly, but there, standing leisurely, gently smiling. Right there, so close. My heart leapt in sheer delight, and suddenly a plethora of emotions seized my body. I tried to rationalize my mind, using only logic, but logic was long gone. The ogre and the guardians flashed before my mind, and I shuddered in fear. Then the excitement of Felicia being by me made me feel elation. Then fear, joy, confusion, and so many more undefinable feelings all refused to wait their turn and demanded to be expressed. My hold on them gave way. I dropped to the floor and wept uncontrollably, my body convulsing. It was too much. I had held on, focused on escaping, for too long. Felicia, I managed to mumble between sobs. It's okay, Kentaro. You're free. Her consoling words only brought more feeling. The word free suddenly erupted in my heart, and I wept harder. Hey, it's okay to cry, Felicia said. You've been through so much, but you're safe now. Her acceptance helped me, and I let myself feel and process those things, a raging river of feeling like I had never known before. I sobbed and sobbed, moving through each emotion, and all the time she sat beside me, her warm brown eyes filling with tears too, and gently nodding. Eventually, after working through wave after wave, I began to settle down and was able to regain control over my body. Something seemed odd though. As I dried my eyes, I felt lighter and more balanced. Hey, I think you needed that, dear Kentaro, she said, with that smile that never ceased to stir my heart. Felicia, I've missed you, I said, while standing. I don't know how you reached into my dark world and rescued me, but you did. I looked into her eyes and smiled. I've missed you too, she said, her eyes meeting mine. It wasn't easy getting you out, and for a moment I thought I'd lost you forever. But what matters is that you are safe now, she explained. What is this place? I asked, suddenly remembering we were standing in a busy station. Is this your world? It's so colourful and wondrous. Let's grab this train. I'll tell you all about this place later. But first, I have something to show you. Follow me, dear Kentaro, she said, holding out her hand. I held out mine too, mimicking, not quite sure what to do. Suddenly, I felt the warm touch of her hand on mine. The alien sensation sent my heart pounding, and I looked up at her. She smiled lovingly, and we lost ourselves for a moment as our eyes met. Follow me, she said, gently tugging at my hand, a grin on her face. and she led me across the platform. But it was all a blur, for all I could think of was the fact that we were holding hands and actually together. A train bobbed to a standstill, and when the doors whooshed open, we got on. The train moved effortlessly, gently swaying from side to side. We watched from the window, together as a beautiful city flashed by. I could just make out its high domed towers and the vibrant coloured streets. I turned to look at Felicia. Her hair was just as stunning as ever, but had fallen into her eyes. I reached up to brush it away, and we found ourselves lost in each other's gaze again. My heart was aflutter, and for the first time in my life I felt like I truly had no worries. I was free, and with the only person I would want to share that freedom with. We stood, unaware of anything but each other, even time. Suddenly, the train had stopped and the door slid open. We emerged from our dream-light state, and she led me off into a tiny village platform. I looked around to see who else had gotten off, to find that we were standing alone, swirls of dust dancing as the train moved off, giving way to a soft silence. I felt a tug at my hand and followed Felicia as she led me down a few steps to a lush green field. On the other side of the field, we came to a gate, which she tapped a tune on with her fingers, and it swung open. Beyond was the quaintest little park I have ever known. Surrounded by the seclusion of lines of trees, there were rows of flowers neatly set out, and right in the centre, an ancient oak tree stood proud. Gently swaying in the breeze, a rope ladder led up the tree to a cosy-looking treehouse. I felt the warm sun on my face, a feeling I had read about in books, but that felt far more wonderful in real life. I stood, marvelling at it all, letting the sun's glow lighten my mood, as I watched birds dart about the sky in frivolity. Squirrels bounded from branch to branch, and butterflies fluttered from petal to petal. I felt so very alive in that wonderful park. It soothed the grey ochre-toned memories of the world I had come from, and what is more, it filled me with hope, knowing that not everywhere was like my world. We gently pattered across the lush lawn together and sat on the grass. I lay back, letting the softness pillow my head, and ran my fingers through the grass as she did the same. We stayed there in silence, listening to entrancing birdsong. A few wispy clouds drifted in, and to my confusion, Felicia pointed at one and said, "Look, a dragon." "What?" I cried in fear, sitting up. "Where?" "No, not a real one. Don't panic, Kentaro," she chuckled. "The cloud. It's shaped like a dragon." I stared, trying to work out how a cloud could resemble a dragon. "Look, there's the head, and those wispy bits either side are the wings," she explained. I half closed my eyes and allowed my mind to draw lines around it. Sure enough, it did. "Yes, I see it!" I exclaimed. Just then I noticed another wispy cloud, and to my utter surprise, my mind, without command, began to imagine that it looked like an old man bent over on a stick. And what's more, my mouth seemed to be defiant too, and I was shouting, "Look, an old man with a walking stick." Felicia snickered. "And that one looks like a dolphin," she declared, pointing to another. I followed her finger to a delightfully shaped cloud that appeared to be just like a dolphin bounding through a vast ocean in the sky. We sat there for what seemed like hours, looking for shapes in the sky, lost, together in a game that felt so new to me, yet so delightful. There were so many shapes that came and went as we giggled at them. When the warmth of the day began to fade and the game had begun to tire, we simmered down. I turned to Felicia and smiled. She smiled back, and I felt her fingers entwine in mine. "I could stay here forever with you," I uttered, awaiting her response expectantly. "Me too," she said, a slight look of concern. "You're safe here, dear Kentaro," she said softly. "This will be our park." "Is this your home?" I asked. "Where you live?" "No, Kentaro, it isn't, but it is our special place now," she said. Won't other people come here? I asked, confused. No, only we can use this place. I designed, she started, but was interrupted by a buzzing on her wrist. I felt the vibrations tingle through my fingers too. She looked gently into my eyes and smiled. I would love to stay here with you forever, but I have to go. I'll be back later and we can be together again. I felt sad at the thought of her leaving after we had only just been united, having been through so much pain and darkness, just to find that she wasn't staying. Hey, she said, noticing my sadness. I'm coming back later, I promise. Okay, I said, trying to regulate my emotions. Where are you going? I asked. I have things to do, but you have everything you need here. If you want to sleep or rest, you can stay in the treehouse, she said, touching my shoulder. When will you be back? Late tonight or very early tomorrow, she replied, a slight sadness in her eyes. Another buzz erupted from her wrist, and as she stood to walk away, our fingers pulled apart. At the gate, she turned to look back at me and smiled. Our eyes met for a brief moment before she turned away. Wiping away a few tears, I watched as she disappeared towards the bright lights of the station. Then she was gone. And then I was alone. Something that had once seemed like an old familiar friend somehow now seemed less welcome. I'd found out what it was to spend time with someone. I'd tasted the sweetness of company. I lay back, replaying our afternoon together, reliving each moment, cherishing it. I felt warm and at ease as I relived the moments while listening to the birdsong. Just then, though, rudely images of the guardians and the prisoners and that terrifying ogre flashed before me, followed by the ochre streets of that world from which I had escaped. I tried to calm myself and open my eyes. To my relief, I was still lying in the safety of the beautiful park. I closed my eyes again and tried to process the events of the day. So much had changed. I had begun my day as a prisoner, but was now free. Free from the terror of my world, from the reaches of Io, from the touch of the whip, and most of all, from the grey monotony of the workhouse. But there was more to freedom than just place. I was now free to be me, the man, the person I wanted to be. Excited about the possibilities, I opened my eyes and sat up, only to see something strange. Something I had only read about in books. A sunset. The sky was ablaze with its fire, and the birds erupted into crescendo of chorus. It was truly magnificent, beyond the description of the words in the books. But just as quickly as it had started, it was over, and soon it was dark. So I lay back, wondering where my freedom would take me next.